G'day battlers, and today I am back from Durban, South Africa with a third place finish in the Durban Special Championship, but much more importantly, with an invitation to the Pokemon Go World Championships in Anaheim. I'm super excited, super stoked. It's really, really cool. But today, instead of focusing on me, we're going to look at Diveshan's winning run through the Durban Special Championship, and as the first South African ever to secure a World Championship invite, I believe, for Pokemon Go. So super, super cool run. If you do want to hear about my run or my experience qualifying for Worlds or my run through the tournament, I'm going to talk about it a lot on the G'day Battlers podcast, so that'll be linked down in the description below. The Durban episode should come out in the next 24 hours, so stay tuned for that, subscribe over there. But today, let's look at Diveshan's run. His team is in the bottom right hand corner with a Feraligatr, regular, Shadow Drapion, Furret, Claydol, Shadow Jumpluff with Aerial Ace and Acrobatics, and Tinkaton. And you can see this was an 8-person tournament, and so double elimination, unlike the Johannesburg tournament. If you watch that video, that one, because it was a bit smaller, it was a different format. Because there is a full 8 people, we did do double elim here. And Diveshan's first opponent was an opponent that you might recognize if you did see the Johannesburg video, DetectivAugust. Now, he's the father of some VGC players, and he was here again, and I actually played him a little later on in the tournament, but first round, Diveshan is up against DetectivAugust, and so you can see DetectivAugust's team is that, it's actually the same team you ran in Johannesburg, with the Swampert, Azumarill, Furret, Primeape with Close Combat, Alolan Sandslash, and the Tinkaton, all with standard double moves. Let's jump into the battles though. This is actually game number 2, because Diveshan didn't record game number 1, but we have the Feraligatr into the Furret in the lead, which is obviously a pretty good lead, because you are sort of outpacing to the Trailblazers, and then the Swifts aren't as scary to you. But Diveshan catches the Swift onto the Shadow Jumpluff, which is a pretty nice spot to be, and we see the counter swap of the Azumarill. And this sort of makes some sense from DetectivAugust's side, because that Azumarill is able to do these super effective Ice Beams, and Diveshan does not have Energy Ball on his Jumpluff. So DetectivAugust, a master of his typings, does throw the Ice Beam, but does get the shield, and we're just going straight for the Acrobatics to try and do that big damage to the Azumarill, take it out, but no, the shield is going to come up, and Diveshan going to swap back into the Feraligatr, tanking the moves from this Azumarill quite comfortably, and it's actually the Tinkaton in the back. Diveshan, very excited to see this, because he does have the Claydol in the back, and so he's probably going to just no shield this Feraligatr, let the Claydol come in and do a really solid job here, farming up some energy, and just has to actually survives the Bulldoze and gets another Hydro Cannon off, which is just a big bonus for Diveshan, because he takes that last shield from DetectivAugust. No need to burn any shields here on the Claydol. And at this point, there's a low-health Azumarill, a mid-health Furret, and a low-health Tinkaton as well, I believe, without any energy. So he's in quite a strong position, Diveshan, and to be honest with you, Jumpluff can probably sweep the rest of this battle. We're going to see an Aerial Ace to KO the Azumarill. We're going to see Tinkaton come in and goes to the Acrobatics to KO the Tinkaton, and then it is just that Furret in the back, and at this point, I think he goes for the Aerial Ace, because otherwise Furret was going to get to a move, I think. Takes it down to the red, and then Claydol comes in. He's going to be able to eat this move, even if it's a Trailblaze, and get the secure the KO, secure the 2-0, and progress onto the next round of the tournament up against Yuno Gasai 1-1-1. I should mention, Yuno Gasai is actually a TCG player, and I guess this is like the remaining 4 in the winners bracket, and on the other side of the bracket is actually me and a player from the SoCal Swabloos, DaBillyBravBird. So the winners finals is going to be a little bit tougher regardless of what happens here, but Yuno Gasai is actually a pretty serious player from the olden days. They are running the Shadow Swampert, actually running Hydro Cannon and Earthquake on this particular Swampert, as well as Azumarill, Malamar, Shadow Charizard with Blast Burn and Dragon Claw, Shadow Alolan Sandslash with Powder Snow, and Umbreon with Foul Play and Last Resort. So it's a bit of an old school team with a bit of a new school flair with Pokemon like the Malamar, for example, but we'll see how the battles do end up going. It might not be as you expect, but we have the Shadow Drapion into the Malamar, a little bit of a neutral-ish lead, but certainly, because Drapion has to go for a few extra charge attacks, sometimes it's not too bad, but you get those Aqua Towers pretty quick smart. Do you see a swap into the Azumarill? No debuff on that first crunch, and so Diveshan decides to dip out, keep all of that energy on the Drapion, and swap into the Furret, which makes a lot of sense from Diveshan's side. You can tank all of that energy from the Azumarill, and also throw this super effective Trailblaze for some shields out of the opponent as well, and there is shield number 1, and actually going to go for a second Trailblaze here and potentially get shield number 2. And we do see the double shield on Azumarill, which kind of means that Malamar in the lead is going to be a little bit unprotected up against all of this energy on the Drapion a bit later. But it's actually the Swampert in the back, and this is where Yuno is really going to feel the lack of shields, because this Hydro Cannon is going to hurt. Takes it right down to the red, and going to get one Hydro Cannon off, but Diveshan can afford to burn a shield here, survive, Shadow Claw down, and it's just going to have a lot of energy to throw into the Malamar. You can actually no-shield here. The regular Feraligatr takes the superpower quite well. One of the big benefits of that Feraligatr, of the regular Feraligatr over the Shadow, she throws our Hydro Cannon, is able to Shadow Claw all the way down, and it is just that little bit of health on the Azu in the back. Hydro Cannon going to secure the win in game number 1, but actually one more Shadow Claw. Game number 2, not so hot though. We have a Alolan Sandslash, terrible lead for Diveshan with a Jump Bluff, so has to swap into the Feraligatr, and the opponent catches the Hydro Cannon into the Umbreon, a very bulky Pokemon, but they actually decide to burn the shield, which may be a bit of a misplay here, but the Foul Plays are going to start to add up. You can see that Foul Play does a lot of damage, and Hydro Cannon not going to do that much back to the Umbreon because it is so bulky, and I guess this is the downside of the regular Feraligatr in that you do a little bit less damage than you would if you were the Shadow, but keeps a little bit of a Hydro Cannon, keeps a Hydro Cannon on the Feraligatr, swaps into the Tinkaton. This energy from Umbreon doing absolutely nothing, but another bad lead in the back. It is Charizard coming out into the Steel type, gets a shield with that Play Rough, and now this is danger zone. Diveshan calls the move, and it's actually the Dragon Claw bait. Great call from Diveshan, keeping himself in the game, and this Play Rough gonna do a ton of damage to that Charizard, but not quite enough. Throws in the Jump Bluff. Blast Burn will KO here, destroys the Jump Bluff, but this actually makes sense from Diveshan's side. He knows that there was an Alolan Sandslash in the back anyway, so if he keeps his Jump Bluff around, there's still another terrible matchup waiting for him in the back, so it makes sense to sacrifice it, keep your shield for a bit later on. And now we're in this Tinkaton versus Umbreon matchup. Obviously very strong for Tinkaton, and this Play Rough will comfortably take out the Umbreon, and it is all going to be down to that one little Alolan Sandslash in the back. Throws its energy into the Tinkaton, getting the KO, but now we have a Feraligatr. The Hydro Cannon was loaded from before, able to get up to the second Hydro Cannon relatively comfortably so that he can sort of secure the knockout here. This was quite close, and if Yuno didn't actually burn the shield on that Umbreon, maybe they actually get the win there in game number 2. But it does mean that Diveshan progresses onto the winners finals, a best of 5 set, and you can see that I am not here, so I think you can guess what happened in the previous round up against DaBillyBravBird. But hey, I still ended up, sweeping along the losers bracket to find a qualification all the same. So, winners finals, this is a best of 5 set, and DaBillyBravBird is no easy walk in the park. They are a SoCal Swablu. They've been to so many tournaments through the past. You can check out their Jokoviz page, but they are running Shadow Feraligatr, Golisopod, and this is a spicy Golisopod because you have to remember, this is Might and Mastery. We're not quite in the new season yet. This is a Fury Cutter Golisopod, which is about to be super awesome, super used by literally everyone, but this is pre-update. It's not running Shadow Claw instead of Fury Cutter, which when I faced him, I had no idea what it did. I was so confused, I didn't study those matchups. Turns out it apparently has a bit of a better Azumarill matchup, but no Azumarill here on Diveshan's side. So we'll see how it goes. And DaBillyBravBird also running the Diggersby, the Shadow Jumpluff, the Unnovan Stunfisk, and the Tinkaton as well. So let's get it started. Best of 5 set. Diveshan versus DaBillyBravBird. Pretty good lead with a Feraligatr into the Diggersby. You can see we have the Claydol and the Furret in the back as well. So even if you sort of have to use your Feraligatr up against a bit of a different Pokemon, you've still got some decent play in the back against this Diggersby. So not the biggest threat in the world. Decides to let the Scorching Sands come through because you can tank it pretty decently, but that's an attack debuff I think I just saw on my screen, which means that these Hydro Cannon's going to do a little bit less, but not less enough to not KO there. And now we're actually going to get a bit of an energy advantage on this Golisopod, which is kind of scary because I don't know that Diveshan really has like a hard counter, and he's just given him a lot of energy. So in comes the Furret. I guess Furret's got some bulk on its side, so it's able to take this Aqua Jet decently well-ish. Tries to catch a move onto the Tinkaton, but it doesn't work, and this has actually just given Diveshan a massive opening. Mudslapper, Claydol swapping into the Tinkaton. None of its energy is going to be able to do anything, which all it really means is that DaBillyBravBird has opened it up so that Diveshan can farm all the way down and then throw Rock Tombs into the Golisopod to not only get shields, but also get a little bit of an attack debuff onto the Golisopod, which could really set up that Furret quite well. So here it comes, the Rock Tomb going to go fire straight away. We're going to get a shield here, gets the attack debuff in, and this Furret is almost at 2 moves as well. So we're going to burn our first shield on the first Aqua Jet. We're at 2 Swifts. We'll be able to burn another shield on the second Aqua Jet and just comfortably throw 2 Swifts, get the KO because they had to shield the Rock Tomb. Doesn't even need a shield. Golisopod doesn't throw. So Golisopod goes down, and that is game number 1 in the bag. Drapion into Golisopod. Now, this is a matchup I didn't know because I didn't study Fury Cutter, but you still do have a pretty decent spot because it is 10 Fury Cutters to the move, just the same as Shadow Claw, and so you sort of pace to the crunches at the exact same rate. So crunch a pretty decent move into the Golisopod. Gets that first shield on the first one, and we're going to go for the second one here. I don't know if that was Charge Stack priority. I feel like it wasn't, but does survive, and it wasn't charge attack priority, which means that this Aquajet is going to be enough to KO the Drapion. In comes the Feraligatr, and we see a hard swap into the Jump Bluff, but this is kind of scary when you're down a shield and you also don't have Energy Ball. So shields up an Aerial Ace, which is, I guess quite good for DaBilly trying to get back into the game, but this Ice Beam is really going to hurt, gets that shield, and now not quite another move. So Diveshan decides like, no, I am going to get to this Ice Beam. And so here we are after shielding another Aerial Ace, it's not going to quite take down, oh no, it does take down. It's a Shadow Jump Bluff, of course. And so it takes down the Jump Bluff. No shields remaining, tries to catch a move into the Diggersby, but it wouldn't be quite a catch per se. I think he was just trying to get energy up on the Golisopod when it's sort of safe to do so. And so Scorching Sands is going to be enough to KO here. So, oh no, not quite. Okay, there is a lot of tiny little survives going on at the moment, but Farret going to have to eat a move. And at this point, he has to think about, okay, that Golisopod is in the back. It is ready to go. So he's going to go for the Trailblaze here to KO the Diggersby. Here comes the Golisopod, and I think he maybe recognized that the game was lost because he wasn't going to be able to get 2 moves. But we now have game number 3, again, a best of 5 set with Farret into the Diggersby. Pretty good spot for the Farret to be in. Scorching Sands, you can tank one on the chin pretty well, but Trailblaze is going to do some super effective damage and boost your attack, which is quite nice. So we'll see how it does end up playing out here. You sort of need a shield because Diggersby does get to its... Actually, no, they both get to that second one in pretty quick speed. But the Jump Bluff coming in here means that we're going to be able to throw some boosted Swift damage before dipping out, which is really going to threaten this Jump Bluff. I mean, Billy was maybe trying to just soak some energy, keep his Diggersby around for later in case he needed it for like a Drapion. But at this point, there's a lot of damage sitting on Billy's side. So his Hydro Cannon comes in from the Feraligatr here. It is probably enough to KO. Actually shields the acrobatics here. Billy thought that after, so many baits in the last game, he might no shield, but Diveshan reads him like a book, throws a Hydro Cannon into the Diggersby that swaps in, and we don't have the third Pokemon. So, to be honest with you though, no matter what it is, a Feraligatr with energy is going to be pretty deadly for it. Golisopod is like, okay, I guess, but still a pretty dangerous situation to be in. But we're going to see no shields remaining. Acrobatics land, which means that it's all up to the Jump Bluff. Doesn't quite get a farm down, but there's a Golisopod swapping in to the Aerial Ace, which is a really nice swap from Billy. Like a really nice swap. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be enough. Diveshan is going to be able to farm up to 2 Aerial Aces here, throw one into the Golisopod because you slightly add pace, and then throw another one into the Jump Bluff in the back. That might have been a charge attack priority as well. But Diveshan taking out the winners finals in a dominant 3-0, which means that Billy sort of goes down to the losers bracket where he meets none other than PvP Steve, which means that going into the grand finals, of course, we are going to be going in. It's Billy again. It's Billy again. It wasn't me. I came third, remember? I told you at the start. So, same exact team, and Diveshan sort of on a 3-0 hot streak. Sees if he can push it even further. I don't know about obviously we have no Energy Ball, which would make this matchup dominant for Jump Bluff. As is, it's not too hot for you, but you still do quite a bit with the acrobatics. So not too bad. Not as bad as you might expect with a flyer into a Stunfisk. But you can see like it brings it down to almost half health alongside the Fairy Winds, so not too bad. Tanks a discharge on the chin. We're really sort of locking into this matchup. I guess we've got the Farret and the Feraligatr in the back, and neither of them are, they're both okay into the Stunfisk. I think that Diveshan might be setting himself up to try and get some farm in the back. Tries to catch the Aerial Ace, but doesn't even get it off, and so it's Farret going to be coming into the Diggersby, keeping that Feraligatr in the back ready to go, potentially predicting that it could be a Tinkaton in the back, where you would really much rather having your Feraligatr than this Farret, so happy to use it in a strong position. Lands the Trailblaze, and actually then swaps into the Feraligatr, getting the Hydro Cannon off before Diggersby throws a move, which means that you really are going to be forcing a shield if Billy doesn't want to throw all of that energy away. Shields up the Scorching Sands, which is a big shield, but that just means that Stunfisk comes back in, discharge, ready to throw, gets to the last shield. Oh, it's a Mud Bomb as well. Maybe he was predicting it. I don't know what he was predicting, but regardless, we do get that shield, and now in comes it's the Jump Bluff. There is still a shield to go, which means that this is all about the shield calls. Does Billy call the Ice Beam? He doesn't call the Ice Beam, which means the back-to-back shenanigans. Ice Beam going to land onto the Jump Bluff. We can actually stay in against this Diggersby, swapping to catch the move as well. This is actually really, that's GG's right there. Farret is going to be able to get to a Swift, or I guess get to the Trailblaze, forcing Diggersby to either lose by just staying in and getting KO'd, or you sort of try and save the energy in the back, but you just don't have enough. You don't have enough when you're forced to throw into the Farret, which means Diveshan 1-0 up in the grand finals. Farret into the Diggersby, another pretty decent lead here, and Diveshan actually bringing in the Tinkaton. A little bit of mutual lag. There was quite a bit of this towards the end of the day, unfortunately, but we'll see how they do start to play it out. I don't think there's any rematches going on, any reviews, because Diveshan just sent me 5 battles straight, and so I'm assuming they're just the 5 straight battles. So we're going to see Diggersby sort of fighting at this forward, going for the fire punch and getting a shield, which is quite nice, but Diveshan are really going to try and get a shield out of it because he wants as many shields peeled off as possible. And that is kind of Diveshan's winning strategy. By making sure that any opposing Jumpluff does not have the ability to burn their protect shields, it puts him in a pretty decent position. So we go for the Swift here because that's all we can get. Gets the KO onto Diggersby, which means you do get alignment at the cost of one little bit of farm. But now it is the Jumpluff coming in, and Diveshan actually swaps into the Tinkerton. Jumpluff with a Fairy Wind advantage is a little bit deadly for the Feraligatr. It can get pretty bad for you. And so we see an Acrobatics landing and a catching the move. The Play Rough actually going to be fired into the opposing Tinkerton here, which means that this Feraligatr has got a bit to do. But it's not too bad because you can tank a move from the Tinkerton. Because that Hydro Cannon does a lot, and after landing the Play Rough, you could almost threaten a full Shadow Claw. Actually, no, you can't Shadow Claw all the way down, surely. You have to shield to be able to do that. But you can do that. Like, that's fine. Jumpluff doesn't have a ton of energy, I don't think. And so we're going to see a Hydro Cannon bait here. Ice Beam would win the game if we can land one, but we're going to get taken out here. And at this point, we're going to need a lot of work from this Tinkerton, I think, because one Play Rough not going to be enough. An Acrobatics from Jumpluff probably is enough to push it right back. So unfortunately for Diveshan, this isn't looking awesome. We're going to see an Acrobatics land through here. We do survive though, and actually, tries to make a catch, but the catch fails, which means Diveshan actually does take out game number 2. We're 2-0 in the grand finals. I think that was Billy's game to win, but Diveshan just stays calm, collected, and cool, and pushes it into a decisive game 3 here. We will see if Diveshan, I guess it's match point, where Diveshan could get the win here. Billy swaps into the Unova and Stunfisk into the Drapion, and so Diveshan going to swap into the Furret, which is a really strong position to be for Diveshan. If he wins this game, he does become the Durban Special Champion. The Trailblazer is going to go through. Stunfisk not going to KO a Furret by any means, so Diveshan can comfortably no-shield that one. You kind of have to burn the shield on this one, though, if you want to stick around and throw that Swift into the Stunfisk. Great farming up from Diveshan, recognizing the energy counts, going for that Swift to take out the Stunfisk. It is that Jumpluff in the back, and so Diveshan just going to go for a little bit of, throwing some energy into the Jumpluff. At this point, DaBilly sort of turned to me and was like, yeah, I think he's got this one. Like, unless there's some big lag scenarios, I think we've got our champion after a 6-0 against me. But stay tuned. Watch how the battle plays out, because this Drapion goes to the Aquatail, gets the shield out of the Jumpluff, and shields up the Acrobatics. Great shield from Diveshan. We now have a Diggersby in the back with a lot of health and still a shield in tow as well. And Diveshan is staying in with the Drapion here, sort of just waiting to get a Scorching Sands out of here, really relying on the Feraligatr instead, thinking that that is his win condition. But he's at the 0-1 shield advantage. He's going to have to get to 2 Hydro Cannons, and a Scorching Sand's going to come in here. And so first Hydro Cannon, going to get shield. He is at the back-to-back, so we can throw another one straight away. He is going to get to the Hydro Cannon, and this Diggersby, with its very significant bulk, does get taken down, and it is just that Jumpluff in the back, but Jumpluff gets the move, and actually Billy going to take out game number 3, and he just looked at me and was like, what? And so we actually get a game number 4 in Durban. The Furret again into the Stunfisk, a really decent lead for Diveshan, and so we see the Golisopod actually gracing the battlefield for the first time in a while from Billy, recognizing that maybe the key to success could be going for that little bit of energy advantage. And so we see the Swift coming in, brings Golisopod down to the red. Another Swift coming in. Diveshan, almost guarantee. Actually not getting a shield out of Billy there, letting the Golisopod go down. This is kind of a tough spot for Billy to get out of, because this Stunfisk, it may have a lot of health, but actually, Claydol is a really bad matchup for Stunfisk in the back if he doesn't have an absolute ton of energy. So Diveshan isn't going to have switch advantage here, so swaps in, or is going to have advantage, I suppose, but it's a Jumpluff in the back, and this is kind of dicey, because Jumpluff has a decent matchup into the Claydol, has a decent matchup into the Feraligatr, and Diveshan is really going to try and land those big Ice Beams, or force shield, or get shields with a bait there with that first Rock Tomb. Now going to try and land the Ice Beam, and this is going to be a pivotal moment. Gets the Ice Beam landed, but Diveshan going to have to eat an acrobatics from this jump off, which is really going to hurt, which means that the Stunfisk in the back, not in a terrible position actually, because a discharge is going to bring it right down. There's a lot of energy on that Stunfisk as well, and so Diveshan needs to land this Hydro Cannon. He needs to take the shield off of this Stunfisk, lands a move into the Stunfisk, and then also be able to land a move into the jump off in the back. So this is a tight spot to be for Diveshan for sure. The Hydro Cannon going to be enough to take out Stunfisk, and it is all down to jump off now. Gets the aerial ace to carry the Feraligatr, and it's now up to the Claydol to try and Mud Slap down, but Mud Slap's not doing enough, and Jumpluff able to hang on again for the second game in a row and barely give DaBillyBravBird the chance, because they are now 2-2 in the grand finals. If Billy wins this next game, they go to a bracket reset. If not, we see Diveshan become the Durban Special Champion, and a strong lead again from Diveshan with that Feraligatr into the Diggersby. Great pacing to the Hydro Cannons, great damage from the Hydro Cannons, takes it down to about half health if it does go through, gets the shield instead, and we can actually sort of see, well, the Scorching Sands lands, a no debuff this time, but we have a Tinkaton and a Furret in the back. Again, mutual lag, it was pretty annoying on site, but they're playing it through, shields up the Fire Punch and the Hydro Cannon. Now going to try and connect to the Diggersby. Again, not enough to KO. At this point, you have to think about what Billy's brought in, and he's brought in the Golisopod. Furret is going to be able to do a lot more damage to the Golisopod than Golisopod can do to it. Even though they have the same pacing, Golisopod has the energy advantage. So he's going to be sort of get to its charge moves first, which means, but look at the Sucker Punches adding up. Like, Diveshan doesn't necessarily need the charge attack damage as much as that Fury Cutter Golisopod until we actually see a full Sucker Punch down before another move can be got to, and as Trailblaze now going to threaten the shield against this Diggersby, force the shield, and it is going to be that jump off in the back, but there are no shields remaining. Once with Swift is landed here, you can actually swap into the Tinkaton, throw a player off, and be in an incredibly strong position as the Tinkaton. You can tank all of this energy from the jump off every single day, farming up an excess amount of energy, which is a great strategy from Diveshan, going, no, let's play it properly. Maximum amount of energy, goes for the player off to get the KO into the jump off. In comes the Diggersby, forcing the energy to be thrown from the Diggersby, because otherwise you'd be eating a player off and just instantly get KO'd. Swapped into the Furret, forcing even more energy from the Diggersby if they want to survive, but instead the Swift gonna take out Diggersby, and Diveshan is your Durban Special Champion. Really cool to see, and of course, massive congratulations for qualifying for the World Championships. And unfortunately, there's no travel awards here for the Special Championship, but still really cool to be qualified. And congrats to DaBillyBravBird as well for second place, and a massive congrats to me for the third place finish, and of course qualifying for Worlds. We can see the bracket is sort of here, which we can sort of look at a little bit later when we look at my sort of run, I suppose. And these are the teams. You can see that the top three, definitely sort of the most hardcore Go players, and then Havashan, and DetectivAugust all sort of running very somewhat serious full teams of 6, double moves and all. Havashan's match team was a little bit outdated, I suppose. Also have a few blasts from the past. DetectivAugust was built for this season though, so very much sort of built for purpose. And then we sort of see Hybrid Panda, who again, TCG player, sort of running for a bit of fun, but with some picks from the past. And Duty the Third, who for the first time has got a Caterpie into the top 8 of an official play Pokemon tournament, which is super cool. I mean, I did one video in a local, and I was like, oh wow, I'm bringing a Caterpie to a local. This guy brought it to a special championship and got top 8. So that's pretty sick. Shout out to Duty the Third. I was talking to him and he said that it's his mascot. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, that is the Durban Special Championship. Congrats again to Diveshan. If you want to check out sort of talking about my run, we'll do it on the G'day Battlers podcast. Again, link in the description down below. And I'll probably post some of my battles to the PvP Josh channel as well. So I'll link that below as well. That'll come out probably in the next week as well. So you can subscribe to all the things, including here, because don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially the subscribe one. And of course, thank you to my patrons and YouTube members as well for supporting the channel. Really do appreciate it. And with that, I will see you in the next one. Take care, gamers. Bye.